a quote appears on the screen which reads, "The object must be unidentified, not only in the observer's opinion, to be categorized as a UFO. It must remain unidentified, even after a thorough examination. Only then can it be categorized as a UFO." J. Allen Hynek. It is the year 1988, and on the night of November 25th, a man named Uno continues to scribble something on a paper while news about the weather plays on the radio. Uno's 9-year-old daughter, Denise, wishes to listen to music, but Uno dismisses her. As it begins to snow, Denise notes that this wasn't indicated in the forecast. Uno, now all excited, tells his daughter that she's begun asking the right questions. He explains that something in the air is disrupting the forecasts and he was right all along. Right at this moment, Uno's friend Leonard, who works at the SMHI, comes running out with some files. He notes that Denise is in the back seat of the car and expresses worry. But Uno is already too far gone. You see, both these men are part of an organization called UFO Sweden and are onto something. Leonard wants the files returned since he stole them from his office and thinks his superior, Kiki, saw him. Uno, on the other hand, wants to keep them. As the two get into a scuffle, Uno drives away. We see Leonard in the background being taken away by security. 8 years have passed since then, and Denise, now all grown up, joins a bunch of teens as they trespass and vandalize public property. It seems like kids didn't have internet back then, so this was what they'd get up to. Anyways, their leisure time is cut short when the police arrive. As her luck would have it, Denise is the only one to get caught and even has a rapport going with the officer, Tommy. Looks like she's been getting into trouble quite a lot lately. Apparently, Denise was abandoned by her dad and had no mother, to begin with. Tommy was the one who found her, and she's now in the foster system. On the way home, Tommy chews Denise's ear out for the breaking and entering. However, Denise catches a break when the two encounter an accident on the road. While Tommy is occupied elsewhere, Denise notices that the lights have started to flicker and the weather is all wonky again. You see, according to the radio, heavy rainfall should have entered the area, but we see no such thing in sight. The movie cuts to a farm where the lights start going off one by one. Now, if that wasn't enough trouble for the poor farmer already, a car comes crashing into his farmhouse from the roof. In the distance, the farmer notices a red streak in the sky. In the morning, Denise is dodging questions about her whereabouts from her adoptive parents when she notices something peculiar in the newspaper. The car that crashed into the farmhouse looks a lot like her father's. Unable to contain herself, she goes to meet with Tommy and points this out to her. Tommy is having none of it and thinks Denise is being paranoid. We eventually find out that Denise believes her father was abducted by aliens, while to everyone else he just disappeared into the mountains. Left hung out to dry, Denise decides to conduct some investigative work of her own. She breaks into the farm and shines a torch at the car, which is pretty banged up. It even has scratches and holes on its sides. However, her efforts are thwarted by some policemen, who are there to take some pictures. As she makes a run for it, Denise accidentally turns on the radio and realizes the cassette's playing the same song she used to listen to with her father. When she's back home, Denise starts remembering the events of the night her father disappeared. After stealing the files from SMHI, Uno drove back to UFO Sweden's headquarters where he made some more calculations. After seemingly figuring out the location of the elusive UFO, Uno abandoned Denise and drove out into the mountains. Finally thinking it's time to follow in her father's footsteps, Denise turns up at the UFO Sweden HQ in the present day. She begins looking through Uno's files and notices a paper cutting about an airplane that went missing in the past. After putting the file in her bag, she walks into a well-lit room where a bunch of people are answering calls about alleged UFO sightings. Here she meets Gunnar, Tom, Teffet, Mats, and the association's president, Leonard. After exchanging pleasantries with everyone, Denise starts explaining everything about the previous night. From the anomalies in the weather to what she believes is her father's car crashing on a farm. Not to mention the red streak the farmer saw through the collapsed roof of his farm. Leonard dismisses her, explaining that most of whatever happened that night can be explained by the presence of an aurora borealis, caused by electromagnetic rays from the sun. It caused the flickering lights and the red streak, which probably distracted some driver, who crashed his car into the farm. While Leonard maintains an objective approach, the other members do not see the trouble in helping quell the doubts of a daughter of an old friend. They all vote for a further investigation into whatever transpired that night. The gang ends up taking a road trip into the mountains to measure elevated values of electromagnetism. While they are there, they notice a weather station with top-of-the-line equipment. Denise suggests that instead of doing the field work, she can hack into the station and get all the measurements, putting an end to their quest for truth. However, this sounds a bit too illegal for everyone else to comply. Well, it wasn't like Denise wanted their approval. She breaks into the station anyway. During this time, a few more vans turn up at the mountain, and when the association realizes they aren't alone, they make a break for it. However, when Leonard realizes they have been intruded upon by none other than SMHI, he thinks something is off about the whole thing. He starts making small talk with SMHI officers, one of whom turns out to be a former colleague, Kiki. Meanwhile, Denise is able to steal a hard drive containing all the station's data thanks to Leonard's distraction. Stealing the hard drive is one thing, but breaking out of the station is something different altogether. When Leonard realizes his attempts at distracting the officers are failing, he gets into the van and crashes through the fence of the station. Denise hops in and they're able to get away amidst all the confusion and chaos. While sifting through the data on the hard drive, Denise notices the notation N being repeated over and over. Leonard explains that the N stands for Newton, and according to UNO, the weather forecasts were being disrupted by something interfering with the Earth's gravity. The data confirms that UNO was right all along, and although SMHI denied his theory as a madman's ramblings, Kiki has been investigating the matter, perhaps on her own from inside the organization. The gang notices some flickering lights on their drive and concludes that they must follow them to have a chance at locating the UFO. As they end up on a field, they notice a UFO overhead, leaving a red streak in its wake and crashing at an unknown site. The crash doesn't go unnoticed by the police, who soon turn up at the site. Tommy, who's with the police, notices the UFO Sweden's van leaving the scene. Soon enough, the sun's up and Tommy has already traced the investigation back to SMHI's weather station. She asks Kiki if she can give a testimony about UFO Sweden so she can finally put an end to the mad cult of old men. But Kiki has been operating the station without the knowledge of her higher-ups and cannot comply. She, however, mentions a young girl traveling with the old men, and Tommy concludes it was Denise. Meanwhile, in the van, Gunnar proposes returning the hard drive lest the association get into trouble. Leonard answers that they'll put the decision to vote. He then asks Denise to find something on the device before Gunnar forces them to return it. While Denise is in her room clicking away on her computer, Polly turns up at her house to question her. Luckily for Denise, Tommy trusts her when she tells her she has nothing to do with UFO Sweden. She then leaves her house and reaches UFO Sweden's office just in time, before Gunnar votes to return the hard drive. She explains that Kiki has been looking into gravitational anomalies since the day her father disappeared. Suffice it to say, Denise indulges everyone's curiosity enough that they agree to keep the device. But since the police are onto them, the gang decides to lay low at Leonard's place. What follows is an upbeat song while the association gathers some more testimonials about the UFO they saw that night. They're able to use the data to triangulate the location of the UFO, but it's a disappointment all over again. Thinking there was something wrong with the data they collected, Denise suggests hacking into SMHI and using their data to triangulate the impact site. Leonard advises her against it. Back at Leonard's place, a bitter Gunnar starts looking into Uno's car. Well, what do you know? Kiki's is not without her troubles either, and she's being questioned by the higher-ups about the facility that was destroyed by UFO Sweden. She's saved when Polly turns up and tells Kiki that UFO Sweden has gone underground. However, if they've plugged in the hard drive they stole anywhere, she can use SMHI's network to track them down, as their digital footprints will be in the network. Amidst all the pandemonium, Leonard has a heart-to-heart with Denise. She apologizes for the fact that Uno abandoned Leonard, to which he replies that it wasn't just him Uno abandoned. Afterward, Leonard officially welcomes Denise as a member by giving her a UFO Sweden badge and throwing her a party. Who's there to ruin the fun though? Good old Gunnar. Apparently, he's gone and located Uno's car and even has a certificate of ownership to prove it. Disappointed that she'll never belong, Denise returns home and throws away the badge Leonard gave her just outside the house. Not all hope's lost yet. You see, Tommy has turned to Denise to help her locate UFO Sweden. In doing so, She gives her access to all of SMHI's data, which Denise promptly faxes to UFO Sweden's office. When she's done, Denise tells her she can't help her locate UFO Sweden. Denise has got some rotten luck though, because Tommy finds her throwaway badge and tries to break into her room. Denise manages to give her the slip and escapes to UFO Sweden's office. She uses the data to locate the UFO, which seems to have crashed into a lake, and alerts the others of her findings. However, she conveniently leaves out the details of how she got the location. You know who's not in the dark like the rest? Gunnar, who has been quietly observing Denise in the office and threatens to expose her. Denise is let off the hook when the police raid the office, taking Gunnar into custody while she leaves undetected. The rest of the gang decides to use a magnet contraption lying in Leonard's junkyard to fish out the UFO and head to the lake to put an end to their quest once and for all. But when the big reveal turns out to be an airplane instead of the UFO they had hoped for, Denise is furious. She comes clean about hacking into the SMHI and lashes out at everyone in the group, who decide they're done helping the brat. In the aftermath, Denise is taken into custody by Tommy, who tells her she'll probably end up at juvie. Denise gives one last look at the contents of her bag and notices the newspaper cutting about the plane that disappeared. She realizes that the one they dug out of the lake is the same thing, and you can't believe what she does next. She triggers the airbag of Tommy's car, crashing it and possibly leaving her for dead. She shows up at UFO Sweden's door, telling them it's all connected and asking for their help. The only one to join her this time, however, is Leonard. The two end up teaming up with the unlikeliest ally you could think of, Kiki from SMHI. But since they're after the same thing, Kiki decides to lend them a hand. They feed an equation Uno came up with to SMHI's algorithm and reach a conclusion that all their troubles have been caused by wormholes appearing out of nowhere. The only way to reach an answer is to locate the next wormhole. Back at the UFO Sweden's office, the rest of the gang decide they want to help Denise as well, save for Gunnar, who goes ahead and gives a false tip to the police that UFO Sweden intends to blow up the SMHI office. It's all gunshots and smoke bombs thereafter, and both Leonard and Denise end up in custody. And it's none other than Tommy who takes them in. Who's there to save the day though? Their pals over at UFO Sweden, who have raided the police blockade in the red car that Gunnar found. Denise notices the scratches and the bullet wounds the car now has and reaches a conclusion. It's the same car as the farm. Whatever threw the airplane forward in time, threw this car backward. As Leonard and her escape using the car, she explains as much to him as the police chase them. However, the police chase comes to an end when the two reach a closed rooftop with nowhere left to go. Leonard tells Denise that if the car has to end up on the farm, it won't crash from the rooftop here. The two take a leap of faith, literally, and end up going through the wormhole, red streak, and everything. They open their eyes to find themselves in an abandoned warehouse. However, something pulls them outside and, in the process, Leonard ends up being gravely injured in the leg. He tells Denise to go on without him and Denise hesitantly complies. After following the light in the distance, Denise comes face to face with her father. She's tempted to leave with him, but Leonard does not agree with her. She lies by his side as the two are taken on a journey across space and time. The wormhole spits them out in the year 1988, 2 years after they left, and their friends are overjoyed to find them. Their interstellar adventure has not gone unnoticed, however, and UFO Sweden is receiving new member applications by the day.